This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on context, and try to help each other understand.
Today, Netflix makes a splash with its first big redesign in 12 years. And do we have an Xbox handheld coming?
Is that a question, or is it a do we have an Xbox handheld coming?
Like, ooh, let's find out.
Let's find out. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Jenn Cutter.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. Netflix is like making a splash. Like it's on the front page of the New York Times right there with the conclave selecting the new pope. First new big redesign for its TV-based apps rolling out to subscribers over the next few months. The left side nav is replaced by a top navigation bar. I feel like this just happens with redesigns. They always start with like whatever was on the top now goes to the left. Whatever was on the left goes to the top. Top navigation in the new Netflix design has the little search magnifying glass, then the home button, then shows, movies, games, and My Netflix, which is your list. The rows of suggested shows are still there, and they will change based on what it knows about you, but they will feature a much larger image for the first show in any row, and that will have a lot more info on it, including little logos like it won an Emmy Award or an Oscar, or it's the #1 show on Netflix's own charts. Netflix also said the algorithms choosing things for those rows should be more responsive to your moods and interests in the moment. So if you like double thumbs up something, it might change all the rows right away. It'll take into account time of day. Like, oh, it's late at night. Give them this kind of stuff. Oh, it's the middle of the day. Give them this kind of stuff. It's the most extensive change Netflix has made to its TV interface in about 12 years. Netflix is also testing adding vertical video feeds of short clips and trailers in a TikTok-like format to its mobile app. You can add shows to lists, start watching them, or share them with friends. And finally, the Netflix app on iOS will expand testing its search that uses OpenAI to understand natural language. Select subscribers are being asked to opt in, so they'll be asking more people to opt into that search. And Engadget reports then, when asked about adding a link out to alternative ways to pay in the Apple App Store, Netflix took a more conservative approach than Amazon, Spotify, and Patreon, which have all added their links already. Netflix said it will continue to abide by the App Store policies until we hear more about how best to implement any changes going forward. That almost sounds like Netflix is playing nice with Apple, Jen.
Ooh. Do they know something the others don't, or are they just trying to buy future favors?
Probably. It feels like it's buying future favors to me because everybody else is like, the judge said, let's go. Unless it's just being conservative and like, I don't know, Apple's going to appeal this. Let's wait till the appeal is done.
They've probably done the math on this, but yeah. So I have an ancient DVD player that my parents gave me that has Netflix built in, and I turn it on like once a year to see if it still connects. It has the world's most ancient interface, and like I know it's not going to change, but I have been on the fence about canceling Netflix, and I'm going to hold off a little now because I do have a cheap Roku that I've been using the Netflix app on. And I want to see when I get this new thing, if it does present me with more options that make me want to hang on. My
only major complaint about the Netflix television interface is that when we're watching a show, right? And like some shows that they get from overseas come out 2 episodes a week. That doesn't always show up at the top. Sometimes we have to scroll around and be like, where is I know there's a new episode out. Where is it? That should always be at the top, or at least on the homepage.
Yeah, because like on the version that I am on, it is a pain in the butt to get to My Netflix. I'm like, guys, that's what I'm here for. That is my #1 thing. If you make me work for this, there is friction. And the more friction you create, the easier it is for me to cancel.
Yeah. I think the OpenAI stuff is kind of interesting because it can help with search, I'm sure. Smart for them to have people opt in, because I know a lot of people are, for various reasons, not wanting to use AI, so they're not forcing people into it. The vertical video feed feels kind of gimmicky. I know everybody's doing that. I feel like that's going to be gone in 3 years. But
I'm actually kind of stoked about that. Like, I don't know if this is a Canada problem, but a lot of shows and movies don't have trailers. So if I want to see what's up before I choose to invest in it, I need to leave and go to YouTube or go to a summary on Wikipedia. So if this gives me like a taste of what's up, that is hopefully a representative taste, that may get me to check out more stuff.
Yeah, I feel like when I would go to mobile for Netflix, I already know what I'm going to watch. But yeah, maybe I'll start to get sucked into it. You make a good point. Maybe I'll be exposed to more things this way. Last thing I have on this is just the fact that it is covered everywhere. CNN's doing it, BBC's doing it. Like BBC does a lot of tech coverage, so that's not super surprising, but it seems to be just big news. And I guess that's a testament to just how many people use Netflix these days.
DTNS is made possible by you, the listener, thanks to Ali Sanjabi, AB Puppy, and Dale Mulhehi.
Yay, everybody! There's more we need to know today. Let's get right to the briefs.
Photos of 2 new models of ASUS ROG Ally 2 have surfaced from certification filings in Indonesia, South Korea, and the US. 91 mobiles found listings for the ROG Ally 2 in Indonesia, and video cards link those to an FCC listing and a Korean Radio Research Agency listing. The filings show a white and black model, and the black model has a button with the Xbox logo on it just above the D-pad. The white model has that button blacked out. Speculation is that this is the rumored Project Kenan or Project Keenan being created by ASUS and Microsoft. The black model with the Xbox button has specs that list an 8-core, 36-watt AMD Ryzen Z2 Extreme CPU and a 7-inch 120Hz LCD display. The design also appears more modeled at the controller grips. We'll likely hear more soon as Microsoft has its build conference May 19th, and ASUS will do its usual announcements at Computex, which starts May 20th.
Yeah, everybody wants this. Everybody wants the Xbox handheld. My guess is this button is just going to take you to Game Pass. There's some people going like, what if it's an Xbox OS? What if you can do Steam OS, Windows, and the Xbox OS all on one device? I kind of feel like it's just going to be Windows. Could dual boot with Steam OS with these specs, I suppose.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Like, if I want to shoot pie in the sky, bring back the Blades interface. Let's go. Let's go retro. OG wow. Xbox 360.
I like it. Yeah, go all the way. Well, what is your best guess, though?
My best guess is Game Pass is the simplest integration possible. It is the path of least resistance, and it's a good way to test the waters rather than having a fully dedicated device. Because even if they do make it dedicated, people are immediately going to hack it and run SteamOS on it anyway.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I feel like the white one that doesn't have the button, probably just because the specs are lower on that one, might be a SteamOS device instead of a Windows device. And maybe that's why it doesn't have the button, although you could still do Game Pass stuff through there. So it could be just the marketing. They're gonna market this one as Xbox, even though others could, potentially do the cloud style of gaming. And this one maybe has a more customized interface or something when you press that button.
Yeah, and they'll decide their market when they announce some prices.
Yeah. Okay, last question. Do you think Microsoft mentions it on May 19th, or does ASUS get all the glory from Computex on May 20th?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think Microsoft needs some good news right now. And if they don't announce it outright, they will tease it to help get more eyes on the ASUS announcement. Yeah,
I like it. I think that's a good call. A jury in a California lawsuit has determined that the NSO Group must pay WhatsApp $167,254,000 for the breach of the data of 1,400 WhatsApp users back in 2019. The amount was calculated in part based on the time that employees had to spend fixing the breach. NSO Group said it is considering an appeal. WhatsApp won the case in December when Judge Phyllis Hamilton found NSO Group violated California and U.S. federal laws by accessing this data. The judge then held a jury trial to determine the damages, and that's what we found out this week.
We have a tidbit about Apple coming out of the trial to determine the remedy to Google's antitrust violations in search text advertising. Apple's Senior Vice President of Services, Eddie Q, testified Wednesday that Apple is actively looking at changing the Safari browser to focus on AI search engines. He said searches on Safari fell last month for the first time, mostly because people are using chatbots to find information. Q said he believes products from OpenAI, Perplexity, and Anthropic will eventually replace standard search engines, and Safari will add those as options in the future. Q added that you may not need an iPhone 10 years from now, as crazy as that sounds. Q also said Google should remain the default search engine in Safari, and that he has lost sleep over the idea of losing the revenue from the Google search deal.
I definitely believe that last. Probably a lot of people at Apple have lost sleep around that. Not that they don't have piles of cash, but they want to keep that revenue coming in. This is all part of the testimony that's friendly to Google that says the judge shouldn't force Google to stop having these deals, which is probably the most likely remedy the judge is likely to give. No more exclusive deals, because what Apple's trying to make the argument is these deals aren't going to last forever. In 10 years, these deals may not even matter. We might not even have search engines. Safari's not always going to use search engines. So they're trying to convince the judge that the remedy should be even more narrow. I'm not sure that the judge is going to go for it, but it is. I think Eddie Q's right. I think we are seeing more and more people turn to these chatbots to find answers. And I think Apple would be smart to add Perplexity and Anthropic and Google with Gemini to the mix. They already have ChatGPT in the mix for Siri, so they could add it to Safari pretty easily, I'm sure. And that is the way people are tending to use stuff right now. So that goes with my general opinion on these things, is antitrust cases usually decide the remedy long after the remedy would do any good.
Yeah. Is this an evolution, or are they going to push people in this direction?
Yeah. It's I guess the big headline out of here is Eddie Q said Perplexity might come to Safari, right? Like that's what everybody's latching on to, but it's going to have an effect on the judge. I'm just not sure what effect it's going to have. I like this next one. Spotify is testing a snooze button that will let you temporarily remove a track from your recommendations. The option will be available on songs you choose to hide from your playlist. So if you hide it from the playlist, it will now hide it from everywhere for 30 days. Spotify is testing this with its paid users, but said it will eventually bring it to all of its users. Radio has a long tradition of this. It's called the recurrent. So a song falls out of the top 40. You don't hear it for a month, and then it comes back as a recurrent where you're like, oh yeah, I like that song. I haven't heard it in a while, kind of thing. And now you can do that yourself.
Interesting. I had talked to some Spotify users I know. I am the weirdo who does not have an account. And they're saying, like, oh, it's about freaking time this came back. We used to have an option to hide songs, and now we don't. Some of my friends had actually switched to listening to just straight albums only because they don't trust the recommendations anymore, because they find it's been steering them more to the so-called AstroTurf things and Spotify's own tracks rather than new bands that, because my friends are very serious about music, they want bands that they can follow, that they can go purchase off Bandcamp and like support and go see on tour. And they are really happy that they can finally tell certain songs to go away.
Yeah,
but why can't they do it permanently? I'm tired of no not being no.
Well, just delete it from your playlist if you want it to go away, right? And Spotify will get the idea, I think. Does that not work?
Because they say some stuff that they do not like in their recommendations keeps coming back, and for things that they haven't been able to prove provenance of. I
think Spotify's not alone in this. I think any of these algorithms are not good enough yet to be specific to the edge cases, and there are plenty of us at the edge that this doesn't work for. And I think those people, like your friends, are going to be the most frustrated, but the algorithms do work. Like my wife uses Spotify and she generally doesn't complain about it, but her tastes are not dead center. They're closer to the center. So she complains about it less. That's my theory anyway.
Yeah. Like my hockey teammates would not know that this existed, would not notice any of this. Yeah. They just use it for background.
What do you use? I use Apple Music, but
I am the person who listens to most of my music on YouTube, which has the very handy do not recommend this channel anymore, and then it goes away forever.
That's nice. Very good.
The Matter smart home standard continues to slowly add features. The latest are tap to pair and multi-device QR codes. The QR code feature lets you use one QR code for a multi-pack, thank goodness, like a pack of 4 light bulbs that sets up all the devices at once instead of having to scan separate codes for each bulb. And the tap to pair feature means you can just use your phone's NFC capability to tap a device to add it to your network. The new features are part of the 1.4.1 specification announced Wednesday by the Connectivity Standards Alliance.
Yeah, this is a good one. And just because it gets added to the spec doesn't mean everybody will implement it, but many makers will. And eventually this will become pretty common. And it's a good one. I like this one a lot. Amazon says its new Vulcan warehouse robot has enough of a sense of touch to handle about 3/4 of the items stocked in companies' warehouses. Previous robots could pick things up, but they couldn't maneuver well inside the fabric-covered boxes that Amazon uses to store goods. Vulcan can move goods around inside the fabric containers and even add new ones. It can sense how much force and speed to use to prevent damage, uses a suction cup and an image sensor to pick up the right amount of things. Vulcan will focus on items more than 8 feet in the air and just above floor level, to save humans from having to climb up on ladders and bending down a lot. Continues to learn from its own movements as well, so it's trained. But as it goes around the warehouse, it'll become even better. And they already have these operating in warehouses in Hamburg, Germany, and Spokane, Washington.
As someone who used to work in warehouses, I love other things being able to go up tall.
Yeah, right.
It is so dangerous. And like you were counting on everyone following the safety regs, which, let's face it, does not always happen.
Although 8 feet seems a little high, like some people are still going to have to get up on ladders for that. 7 feet.
Yeah. I think this is also future-proofing in terms of like, okay, how high can we make our future shelves to store more in the same square foot?
Yeah, that's a good point.
IBM CEO Arvind Krishna said agentic AI has replaced the work of a couple of hundred human resources workers, and the company has used the savings to hire more programmers and salespeople. Krishna told attendees of IBM's Think conference that total employment at IBM has gone up.
Scottish data scientist Hannah Ritchie was concerned about the power use of large language models, as a lot of people are, so she looked at the data to see how much she should be concerned, because she's a data scientist. She found that in the UK, 10 ChatGPT queries a day would use an average of 0.2% of an individual's daily electricity use. People in the US generally use more electricity on average per day, so that number drops to 0.09%. She also looked at carbon emissions. 10 ChatGPT queries per day would lead to an increase in emissions of 0.16% in the UK or 0.07% in the US. You would have to reduce your ChatGPT queries by 50,000 per year to equal the carbon emissions saved by just switching to LEDs for all your lights. Avoiding meat using hybrid or electric vehicles saves much more in emissions. Ritchie notes that total energy consumption from these companies is problematic and something to pay attention to, but changing your individual use won't have much of an effect. And if you don't get the benefits of using them, it could actually make things worse.
This is way lower than I had been hearing. So it is nice to hear some actual kind of hard numbers going out on this, because like on social media, you do tend to get the extreme reactions of people saying, oh, how can you use this? You're using a whole Niagara Falls day's worth of energy. And I'm like, well, that can't quite be right.
Yeah. I think that's what Richie's point was, is yes, you can make this sound very big because it is very big. And there are concerns about how the data centers themselves are powered, how enterprise use, as with so many things, industrial use is a bigger use than individual use. But you restricting your own ability to use these, probably not by the data, going to make that much of a difference. So don't feel bad about it. And look at some of these other things that she graphed out of, like, if you really want to have an impact on emissions and energy use, there are things you can do that do make a big effect. Molly Wood just did several weeks of like things you can do that actually have an impact. So those are good to look at as well.
And finally, the Golden Globes will add a category for the best podcast starting next January. 6 finalists will be selected from the 25 most popular podcasts. So we really need your help, people. All
right. Yeah. We need to get in the top 25 before the Golden Globes selection happens. That probably happens, in December or something? I don't know. But yeah, we could use your support. In fact, one of the ways we get better and get more listeners is to hear from you about what you like and don't like about the show. And we've got a survey running. Big thanks to everybody who's filled this out already. We've had a ton of people but if you haven't got around to it, only takes a few minutes. It's fun to do, really helps us shape the show. Just head to dailytechnewsshow.com/survey. Thank you.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Dave has some thoughts after listening to the special weekend episode Tom recorded with Molly Wood about Apple's App Store linking policies.
Yeah, Dave wrote, thanks, you two. Really enjoyed this bonus episode. I found the deep dive into the reasons that things happened from both perspectives to be a great conversation and much better than others who only present it as a black and white issue. Both sides have valid viewpoints from their own perspectives. However, the judge gets to make the final call. Super interested to see how this proceeds. In addition to Apple claiming the better device, they could have just complied with the judge's order, yet still slung a bit of mud about how other payment services don't take privacy, convenience, and user confidentiality as seriously as Apple does, and that would be enough for many users to give third-party stores a hard pass. My parents wouldn't touch other stores, and I wouldn't buy stuff for my own kids on them, knowing how much user data is shared commodity once captured. I agree with you, Dave. I think Apple has a good case to use their system because of the reputation they have. And to me, it kind of damaged the reputation that they were forcing people to do it because it made it feel like, oh, well, maybe it isn't as good as they say.
Yeah, well, DTNS will continue to stay on top of this as the story continues to develop.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking about? Have you got some insight into a story? Share it with us over at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Tried out something different today. We're trying to hone the interviews that we do. So you might notice that we didn't have an interview today. We will have more interviews in coming shows, but we might not have one every day. It makes it more efficient, but we'll still pick them based on what's informative and what we think helps you understand. Big thanks to Dave for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons, patreon.com/DTNS. Quick note, I will be doing a workshop in Austin, Texas, the weekend of June 27th. If you'd like to learn more about how I do my independent creations, as well as Brian Brushwood does his, find out more at bestnewsever.com.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.